I got a wild hair up my butt and I really want to rewrite Urban Spook. Also, Urban Slug, if you see this video, I am not an autistic furry. I am an autistic monster fucker. There is a difference. For the first video, I would have it be a police investigator discussing a cold case. Essentially, about a decade ago, a string of missing persons cases plagued this small town, and recently they went into a storage unit that, has been paying up, to which they uncovered a myriad of macabre paintings, all having the exact same names as those that went missing a decade prior. I wouldn't go with any of the cheeky titles. I would literally just make it the names of the victim. I'd keep the paintings abstract, mostly because it would play on the imagination of the viewer. You would then have to concoct what would these things look like on a real-life person with a actual real-life body. Also, I would make the text much more professional, much more procedural. While there has been no body found, the police are now investigating. And I'd have it end with the self-portrait. Next video would open with our lead investigator now talking about his theories. Him saying that all of these things couldn't really be done in a residential area, and going into the killer's MO and where these things would have to take place. I'd have the setting essentially be like a town that has mostly been run down, especially since the string of disappearances, and it's just been like on a sharper and sharper decline over the years. So there are a lot of abandoned buildings, a lot of abandoned storage areas, and an abandoned lighthouse. The police now looking into all of these places and discovering some of the missing people's bodies. I'd also make the deaths believable. I worked in the medical field. I worked in funeral services. You can't individually stab someone 27 times in the perineum unless you're like using a fucking needle. Anyway, I would make the deaths you can keep them gruesome, but still believable. Furthermore, I would describe the coroner's report, but only show the painting. And I would make it, professional sounding. You look at the coroner's report, you look at that painting, and then you have to imagine how that would reflect in real life. Also, I would get rid of all of the photographs in the series because it completely muddles the water with the painting. Realism is not this creator's strong suit. That's not a bad thing. I'm just saying it definitely takes away from the story. Anyway, in the lighthouse, they find some of the victims, and I'd have it be revealed that this killer is using parts of the victims to create these paintings. I'd have this shown because next to one of the bodies there would be an unfinished painting, implying that while the killer was constructing the masterpiece, there was something interrupted. And I'd have the scene, obviously the body would be covered. Maybe just a hand laid out on the ground, and you see the half-finished canvas, implying that the killer was interrupted by something. They, of course, then get all the other paintings tested and, chaos ensues. Next episode would open with our lead detective talking about how a lot of the victims' loved ones, as well as reporters, have come back into town, and how the FBI is now getting involved. The town now begins to look at anyone that has artistic capabilities for obvious reasons, and they get a hit with this one local artist who unfortunately passed away a few years ago. Our lead investigator talks about going to her house and finding it abandoned. A lot of people think that she was probably the killer, but the investigator talks about how that wouldn't really make sense, given how much physical labor would have gone into these murders. It could not have been done by just a singular person. While there are rooms that were obviously lived in by children in the house, nobody knows what the kids look like. When the investigator goes and tries to find information about the children she had, he finds no record of them. All they have to go on are the abstract paintings that the mother made. The next episode opens with the lead investigator discussing how some of the journalists have gone missing. At first, because, they were just breezing into town for the story and then leaving, nobody really batted an eye when they up and vanished, but now people take notice that they haven't just gone back to work, they are gone. The police then begin receiving small pieces of canvas in the mail. Obviously, when all of the different bits are assembled, it makes a full painting about what has happened to these journalists. I don't know if you guys like Mystery Flesh Pit National Park, but the clown, Kaiser thing, the melty clown thing? I want that. Like a melty thing of journalists. The detective then realizes that every single one of these journalists leaned into the angle that this now deceased mother, who was a painter, was the one that did these murders. Them now convinced that it's her kids that are carrying out these grisly assaults. Also, obviously, the painting was made with the remnants of the reporter. In the next episode, I'd have our lead investigator go home to find that his house has been broken into. And obviously, he's, not an idiot. So he immediately calls for backup. Everyone goes in with guns drawn, and they find a new painting in his home. It's one of him, but to their surprise, it was made with actual paint, not bodily fluids. This then gets the lead investigator thinking, and they go back to the victims' families and begin to ask them, did you have, any art pieces show up, or did your family go for portraits? To which it's revealed that every single victim's family received a painting. But it all varied. Some got it a week before they died, some a month, some years prior. They all, however, got them from the local artist lady that's now dead. And anyone depicted within the painting was killed. I'd have it then that our lead investigator decides to use himself as bait. He doesn't know when the children of the painter are going to strike, but he knows that he is their next target. He decides to stay put and hatch a plan in order to get them captured. And it works because, realistically it would. The FBI is involved, whole police involved, and that there were a lot more of them than they initially suspected. There wasn't just 1 or 2 kids, but there was 4. I'd have it be revealed through bits and pieces that the mother was so engrossed with her artistic endeavors that her children remained neglected, all of them taking up artistry as well in order to get close to her. I'd also have it that she began to lose her spark and her ability to paint and feel that artistic fervor that she was so used to. I'd have it that the first victim was actually somebody that was dissatisfied with her paintings and her art style, to which she then, in a fit of rage, just bludgeoned them. Her children witnessing this and her feeling that spark once more and using that person's blood, her then enlisting her children to help her. Her going on this artistically fueled killing spree, using her children to help her with her victims, until in the lighthouse, she has a heart attack while painting and dies. Children then putting her in the home, and they themselves having been living in the basement for these 10 years. They put all of her paintings in her storage unit, and when our lead investigator asked them, why did you come out now? They said, we heard people in our house. Them coming out for the first time in a decade, seeing all of this new resurgence, and them themselves regaining the spark to create art again. Obviously, they're all booked, and our lead investigator talks about wrapping up the case, and him saying how he wants to go into the house one last time. Him going into the hidden basement where the children had all been living, and to his horror seeing that there's not 4 beds, there's 5. And that's where I'd end it. Because I like paranoia.